The morning sun had barely crested the hills when Alex spotted her. He'd been tending to his family's farm as usual, scattering feed for the chickens in the misty dawn, when the air around the old oak tree began to shimmer like heat waves over summer grass. Through what appeared to be a tear in reality stepped a woman unlike any he'd ever seen. Her platinum hair floated as if suspended in zero gravity, catching sunlight like strands of starlight. Her eyes were the deepest blue imaginable, but not any earthly blue. They swirled with what looked like galaxies, ancient and mysterious. Her clothing defied description, a dress that seemed to be made of living light, flowing around her form like liquid moonbeams. Where her feet touched the dewy grass, tiny sparkles of light danced upward. "Your world's atmospheric composition is quite pleasant," she said, her voice carrying musical undertones that made his skin tingle. "Though your star burns rather intensely." She moved with unnatural grace, occasionally floating inches above the ground before catching herself. "I'm Arya," she continued, noticing his stunned silence. "That's the closest approximation your language can manage. I'm from what you would call the Andromeda Galaxy, though that's a vast oversimplification." Alex found his voice, though it came out rough. "Are you allowed to be here?" Her laugh sounded like wind chimes in a cosmic breeze. "Contact with developing civilizations is strictly forbidden." Her eyes sparkled with mischief. "But I found rules to be more like guidelines, especially when I encounter something truly fascinating." The way she looked at him when she said fascinating made his heart race. She moved closer, and he caught a scent like summer rain and stardust. Where her fingers touched his arm, warmth spread through his entire body. "Your species intrigues me," she said. "You're so young in cosmic terms, yet you feel things so intensely. Your emotions are like supernovas, brilliant, powerful, impossible to ignore." Above them, the sky took on an unusual iridescent quality. Arya glanced up briefly, concern crossing her features. "I don't have much time. My people will notice the dimensional breach soon." She turned back to him, her stellar eyes intense. "But I'd very much like to learn more about human experiences before they find me." Alex led Arya to his favorite spot, a hidden pond surrounded by ancient willows. The water reflected her otherworldly glow, creating patterns like starlight on its surface. Small objects began floating around them, caught in her wavering control over gravity. "Tell me," she said, moving closer, "do humans still experience physical attraction? My people evolved beyond such responses eons ago." Her eyes studied him with scientific curiosity mixed with something more primal. "These reactions fascinate me. Your increased heart rate, dilated pupils, elevated temperature." Her dress shimmered, becoming slightly more translucent. "My kind would be horrified by such loss of control. They believe physical intimacy creates quantum entanglement between beings." Her smile turned mischievous. "They're probably right." Above them, the sky had taken on a shimmering quality, like oil on water. Geometric patterns began forming in the clouds. "They're looking for me," she whispered. "Dimensional breaches leave traces." "But—" She moved closer, her scent like cosmic rain filling his senses. "Perhaps that makes this moment more precious." The air between them crackled with energy. Where their bodies touched, small sparks of stellar light danced across their skin. Arya's control over gravity wavered further, causing flowers and leaves to float around them in lazy orbits. "Your scientists would call this a violation of multiple laws of physics," she murmured, her lips now inches from his. "My people would call it corruption of a developing species." Her hands found his chest, sending waves of warmth through his body. "What would you call it?" Alex looked into her eyes, seeing galaxies spin in their depths. "I'd call it inevitable." Their first kiss was like touching a live wire. Energy coursed between them, making the air glow with aurora-like lights. The willow branches began to sway in a non-existent wind as reality itself seemed to bend around their connection. When they finally parted, both were breathing hard. Arya's form had become less solid, more ethereal, as if she was having trouble maintaining her physical form in the face of such strong emotions. "Well," she said, her voice carrying new harmonics that made the air vibrate. Perhaps some primitive responses are worth preserving after all. The search patterns in the sky grew more intense, but neither of them looked up. They were too caught in each other's gravity, falling toward something that would either destroy them or transform them entirely. The barn became their sanctuary as the sky above filled with searching patterns. Aria's natural glow illuminated the space, her form shifting between solid and stellar energy as their passion grew. "This is dangerous," she whispered, trailing luminescent fingers across his skin. "The dimensional barriers are weakening. If we fully connect," she shivered as his hands found her waist, "could tear a hole between realities." Their connection transcended physical intimacy. Where their bodies met, reality itself seemed to bend and blur. The barn filled with aurora lights as they created their own laws of physics. The hay beneath them began to float as Aria's control over dimensional forces slipped away entirely. In the aftermath, as they lay entwined in a cocoon of starlight, both knew they'd crossed a point of no return. The dimensional barriers had been irreversibly weakened, and their beings had become quantum entangled in ways that no force could undo. "They're coming?" Aria said suddenly, her form flickering between solid and energy. "But there's another way." She held out her hand, pulsing with stellar light. "Come with me." "To your dimension?" "No. Somewhere between a pocket universe created by our entanglement. They wouldn't be able to follow. The physics we created together, it's completely new." Her eyes swirled with galaxies and possibility. "We could be pioneers of a new form of existence." Above them, the search patterns transformed into a complex geometric net, closing in on their location. They had moments to decide. "It's dangerous," she warned. "We might become something entirely new, neither human nor stellar being. Are you willing to risk everything you are for something you might become?" Alex looked at their entwined hands, his solid flesh against her shimmering form, and made his choice. Just as the dimensional net began to close around them, they stepped together into the unknown. Their transition created a shockwave across dimensions. Alex felt his body dissolve and reform as they fell through layers of reality. Aria's presence anchored him through the transformation, guiding him as they emerged into a space that defied description. Their pocket universe bent to accommodate their new hybrid existence. Alex was no longer fully human, and Aria was no longer purely stellar being. They had become something unprecedented, a perfect blend of physical and energy. "Look what we've created," Aria whispered. Around them, their shared consciousness had shaped reality into something new, crystalline structures that grew like living things, oceans of liquid starlight, skies that shimmered with endless auroras. Through the quantum field, they sensed others like them, beings from different universes who had dared to love across dimensional boundaries, drawn to the sanctuary they'd created. "Your people have stopped searching," Alex observed, feeling the changed patterns in higher dimensions. Aria smiled, her stellar eyes triumphant. "They're studying us instead. We've proved that evolution doesn't always follow predicted paths. Love can create its own physics." "What happens now?" Alex asked, though he could feel the answer in the quantum vibrations of their shared consciousness. "Now?" Aria's laugh still sounded like wind chimes, even in their energy form. "Now we explore. There are infinite dimensions out there, and infinite possibilities. And thanks to us, there are new doorways opening between all of them." Hand in hand, or energy field in energy field, they turned toward the unexplored regions of their expanding multiverse. Behind them, their love story continued to ripple across realities, inspiring others to look beyond the boundaries of their existence. As their pocket universe stabilized, Alex and Aria discovered they could shape reality with shared thoughts. Time moved differently here, flowing like light through a prism. Their union had created something entirely new in the cosmos, a place where love literally bent the laws of physics. "We're not alone anymore," Aria said one day, directing Alex's attention to quantum ripples in their space. Through the dimensional barriers, they detected others, couples who had defied cosmic law to be together, drawn to the sanctuary they'd created. Their love had changed the fundamental nature of reality. What started as forbidden attraction had evolved into something revolutionary, proof that consciousness, love, and quantum physics were more deeply connected than any civilization had imagined. The barriers between dimensions are becoming more permeable, Alex observed, his consciousness now able to perceive multiple realities simultaneously. Your people aren't trying to stop it anymore. They've realized they can't. Arya laughed, her form shifting between human and stellar. We've shown them that evolution follows paths they never imagined possible. What we created here, it's changing everything. Together, they stood at the threshold of infinite possibilities. Through their connection, they could sense countless other beings beginning to explore the boundaries between dimensions, inspired by their example. They'll come looking for answers, Arya mused, watching the ripples of their influence spread across realities. Others like us, seeking their own path between worlds. Then we'll be ready, Alex replied, his human determination now merged with stellar wisdom. We can show them the way. As if in response, new quantum signatures appeared at the edges of their realm, more beings stepping beyond the boundaries of their existence, seeking something greater than themselves. And on quiet nights, in a small village on Earth, when the stars seemed to shine with unusual brightness, people would sometimes tell stories about the farmer's son who fell in love with a star and became legend. The universe, it seemed, had infinite space for new kinds of love, and they had only begun to explore its possibilities.